watched Superman 2025. It was awesome! Everything that I loved about the character was conveyed on the big screen. Border policy, people were going to die. Political optics, people were going to die. Government allies, people were going to die. 10 out of 10. Some of the standouts of the movie included chick magnet Jimmy Olsen, lore accurate Lex Luthor, and Clark's relationship with Lois Lane. As I walked out of that theater, I thought, man, that was such a good representation of their dynamic. But as the night went on,
this motherfucker don't miss.
No, he's fucking good.
That motherfucker don't miss, man.
He's good.
In the heat of battle, he don't miss.
No.
In the heat of controversy, he don't miss.
No.
hot take, civilian love interests in superhero adaptations suck. They just do. I doubt I'm alone in thinking that. We've all seen the videos online. They can be toxic, overbearing, misunderstanding, and frankly, just not entertaining in a medium built to entertain. The latter of which is usually all it takes to make it to a top 3 of fandom's shit lists. This trope exists all over fictional media, but for the superhero genre, it usually translates to a love interest that lacks either superpowers or special skills of their own.
Maybe the expressionist piece?
Mary Jane, Iris West Allen, and Amber from Invincible are all examples of love interest without any powers that have little relevance in the overall A-plot of a story, and whatever attempts they make to drive the plot or create developments themselves usually reflects negatively on their character, either by overstepping their importance or undermining the main characters. Doesn't matter if you haven't been the same character for 2 seasons in a row, they're still making video essays about you in the big 2025. Over time, the conversation went from these characters just needing better writing to a good amount of people, myself included, believing that superheroes dating a civilian will always lead to the most toxic power dynamics in fiction. Sometimes not even on the fault of the civilian. Can we all agree that Debbie Grayson is a G in that show? Arguably one of the best written characters besides Omni-Man himself. But if you examined Debbie's lifestyle as the wife of the most powerful hero on Earth, holy shit! Debbie could be raising Mark as a single mother for months at a time before he went AWOL. And unlike military or service members, there's no warning or notice. He could be sipping coffee 1 second and then trapped in another dimension for months the next. So that sense of loneliness was ever present, even when he was. Her value as a member of the family is put into question more than the literal baby. The one thing she has going for her outside of her family is that she's a killer real estate agent. Even that's not enough for the sense of helplessness driving her to alcoholism, which may or may not even predate the events of the series. She has 0 friends outside of the super spouses, and her social circle is so small, she has to date a co-worker. If not for her son, she was ready to end it all. Debbie is the character that fully convinced me that even if you checked all of the boxes that made you a positive love interest for your MC, you're cooked! You are the side piece of the relationship the MC has with the world. Your presence is never necessary, your input is never valued, and you better be okay with your significant other showcasing to you their ability to tell bull-faced lies that can perfectly line up with each other for over the course of years. Yes, protecting their secret identity is a good enough reason to do so. No arguments here. But you have to move on with the knowledge that your spouse can be a tier 1 gaslighter when they want to be. And don't you dare get insecure or show any negative emotions towards how your relationship functions, you social pariah. The writers will neuter you expeditiously. That's no way to live, let's be honest. So civilian love interests in superhero media should not work in theory and very rarely in practice. So why does Lois work? In all of her adaptations in film and TV, whether animated or live action, I've actually struggled to find a Lois Lane that I actively despise. Not just me, Lois Lane doesn't hold the same energy that names like Mary Jane or Iris West give off. Superman has had a myriad of superpowered love interests, sometimes in the same series as a Lois Lane, and Lois is damn near always seen as the superior alt, and is typically Clark's endgame anyway. Even when a newer take on the character pulled the same trope that buried Amber in infamy. The internet did not unite in the same overwhelming force. Ma's Lois still ended up being a top 3 adaptation contender, even with that handicap. And steep competition, mind you. But that shouldn't be the case, right? I think the first thing we need to go over before anything else about the character is a pitfall that I think most civilian relationships struggle with. Why are you here? Is the character providing something no one else can? Are they being helpful in ways the main character would suffer without? Or is the main character arguably better solo? Characters are meant to make mistakes in a story, yes, but they usually have a lot of positive traits that make up for it. As a niche example, Zuri from Redemptor is a character that causes one of the conflicts to exacerbate in ways even he's too reckless to predict. Yet his endearment and moral compass brings a sense of tragedy to his character, and he ultimately gets a pass as a love interest. So if a character does something inconvenient while being a nuisance to both the characters and the audience, then that's the first thing that always comes into question, and it's how most civilian love interests fail, in my opinion. The reason Lois Lane works on so many levels with Superman is because of her occupation. Lois Lane isn't just a reporter or news anchor, she's an investigative journalist, a career so dangerous in the real world. One journalist dies every 4 days. You know, it may just be me, but at that point, you have to be in it for the love of the game. It's a job with only one goal: to uncover and share the truth about what's going on to the public. Already, we know that only a specific type of character would ever want to be a journalist as their career path. Lois doesn't needlessly put herself in danger. It's quite literally in her job description to die in service of bringing the truth to light. The criticism of her only putting herself in danger because she can exploit Superman for protection doesn't work, because even in an alternate universe where Superman isn't a thing, she's still doing her due diligence. She straight up accepted death here, because in her line of work, living afterwards is just a luxury. I know that this is a parody short, but there's no such thing as a funny lie. She's just like that. So we have the why, then there's the what. What does Lois provide that no one, not even Superman, is capable of without? Guys, she's the sole reason Superman isn't slandered in the streets like a certain web-slinger. Superman's public reputation arguably holds more of a presence in his character than Spider-Man. There's not a single adaptation of Superman that doesn't tackle this at least once. Hell, multiple times in a single canon. Lex Luthor is Superman's #1 op, and his strategy for taking on the Man of Steel has always been a two-pronged approach. Beat Superman up at night and slander his surname in the day. While Lex usually loses in both fronts, you know, because truth and justice always prevails after all, Lois almost always has a hand in defeating Lex on the public reporting front. Lois's whole career is built on uncovering fake narratives, deliver true details on current events in Metropolis. She is at her best when she is working with Superman to expose false narratives, which Lex and others would get away with otherwise. Seriously, worst case scenario, Lois is just a minding her business damsel in distress in a story. She's still the most credible witness on the planet, so Lex can't twist the narrative against Superman. But is Lois completely essential to Superman's character? I mean, he has had a myriad of love interests over the years that aren't her, so what exactly are we left with if Lois isn't in the picture? Well, as it turns out, we lose Clark. Everyone else around him views him as Superman, even Jimmy. But Lois is the one that loves him as his farm boy self. It's like, and I hate to be referencing this, Miraculous's Love Square, where the most toxic outcome is, come on, objectively the one where they can't be themselves around each other. While I did not grow up with watching Smallville, part of what made Laura's dynamic with Clark crumble is because Laura effectively wanted a relationship with Superman, not Clark Kent. She infantilized him to the point that she became Smallville's most hated character, apparently. But when Lois entered the show, it's like they were made for each other. No, literally. Barring some modernizations of their status and relationship, Lois and Superman have always operated like this since their inception. This means that Lois, as the progenitor of the civilian love interest trope, has always had one leg up on all of her descendants. She was created with Superman's theme in mind. There's no sidestepping this. A lot of love interests, men and women alike, are there just to be there. Sure, it has gotten better over the years, but typically, they're just another source of drama for the medium to milk. Hell, they don't even have to be powerless. Despite his popularity, what is the point of Cat Noir? If the theme of the show was love conquers all, why can Ladybug solve the day without him? And if he's the last man standing, they're fried. If the theme of the show was teamwork makes the dream work, then he's not even needed as backup, because she's spoiled for choice, and he ends up not mattering to the point where that the final battle with the main villain of 5 seasons apparently doesn't have him in particular. He's useless! Utterly useless! The best love interests are more than just plot devices or drama factories, but also work with the themes of the entire character and show. The point of Superman is that hope, truth, and justice will always prevail in the end. No matter the odds, he pulls through to protect those virtues. Lois's entire purpose is to uphold the truth, to share critical knowledge with her investigative journalism, and dispel information no matter the danger. Superman always puts his body and life on the line for the ideals he stands on, and in turn, so does Lois Lane. Superman always needs to make sure that Lois survives, because if she prevails, so does truth and justice. She doesn't add inconvenience for him. She upholds what constitutes the character in the first place. You cannot say that about Lana Lang, or Mary Jane, or Amber Bennett, or Jimmy, or Iris, or Julie, or Asami, or Michaela, or Carly, or Bianca. Arguably Hinata, even though she has powers, and I like her. And somehow Adriana Grast! But I do think all of this would be a moot point if Lois Lane wasn't a dynamic character for both Clark and the audience. Her dry, sometimes cynical dialogue bounces off neatly with Clark's optimism and witty comebacks. The situations she finds herself are borderline regular show, which coupled with her determination and thankfulness by the end, ends up being more endearing than it is annoying. Lois straight up makes Clark funnier than he would be otherwise. The best written relationships are when the characters are better together than apart. Looking at you, Eve. Also, despite the massive power difference between them, both Clark and Lois share the energy of I will move heaven and earth if it means you're safe by the end. Get you a woman who will stage a heist of a whole spaceship to infiltrate a space fortress for you during a rough patch. Get you a wife that will yell at you for not having you and your sons jump Doomsday so you don't die. Get you a woman who will break into your apartment to solve your murder out of sheer respect and works with Superman nearly getting herself ice to expose the culprit. Get you a woman who is willing to break every federal law to bust you out of a pocket dimension and will help hold the entrance open as long as humanly possible until you escape 3 months into your relationship. I don't care how many times I have to say it. She is like that. No, she isn't perfect in any and every incarnation, but her relationship is always healthy enough that even when they argue and bicker, by the end of the day, they still choose each other. So with this clarification, it's easy to see what other civilian love interests lack. So many characters will try to follow Lois Lane's skeleton and then completely miss the mark one way or another. Why do you think there's such a surplus of leading news ladies in action media? Because on a surface level, being a news-oriented character should grant you every virtue that I listed for Lois automatically. A reason to be there, a purpose that serves the star, prominence in the narrative, etc. But unless your name is April O'Neil, none of the meat that makes the skeletons human is usually present. They have a reason to exist in the story, and then no further care is taken to make sure that their presence isn't absolutely insufferable. The dynamic isn't thought through enough, and sometimes the writers make the MC unbearable with how they treat their love interests, or have untainable alts look vastly superior. How? So Lois, the original love interest to this day is the best of her archetype, and it's not even close. Unless you deeply consider how your MC's love interest is going to function in the world, both realistically and thematically, your fan base is better off shipping the MC with the villain that commits mass atrocities, but are more relevant and overall fun to talk about. Or, give them powers. Not an instant fix, clearly, but it's probably easier to write around. It's honestly funny how nearly 100 years later, there's never been another Lois Lane. Stop sleeping on it! Thank you if you've made it this far. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to be making more content like this in the future. I know this channel is intermixed, but that's just how I roll, If you have any other fun topics, comment them below. Definitely share your thoughts. Stuff like this, it's always fun to talk about. And I think it's something that not a lot of people really discuss, in good faith. So I really want to hear other people's thoughts on this. With that being said, my name is Dark Dive, always spelled with 23, but the numbers are silent. Have a good day. Peace.